Today's episode of Pentathlon 360 comes from right here in the heart of central London. In 2021, after qualifying for his third Olympic Games, Irish athlete Arthur Lanigan O'Keefe announced his retirement from the sport. So what's Arthur up to now, and what does life after pentathlon look like? Well, we're going to head down to Battersea, where Arthur lives, to find out more. Arthur, good to finally sit down and talk to you. How do you look back on your career?
Definitely had moments in my career whereby things didn't go the way I wanted, and I always felt that I had the potential to do more. But yeah, now with a bit more context, a little bit more removed from the sport, I look back and quite proud of the career I had. Yeah. In my head, going into Rio, it was go to Rio and then retire. And I was going in really good form. Obviously, won the Europeans. But yeah, sport has always got new challenges for you, and unfortunately, I wasn't prepared for the scenario whereby things wouldn't go as well as I wanted to in the fence. So fencing went very, very disappointingly. But on the second day, I was one of the best athletes and managed to pull myself up to a respectable position. But obviously at the time, I was very disappointed with the 8th position. One
thing I think it's hard to mentally prepare yourself for in sport is how much of a factor luck is. And with pentathlon, obviously 5 different sports, that element of luck does sometimes get increased. Now, leading into Tokyo, you obviously qualify for Tokyo, which is one thing we'll come to in a moment. But leading into Tokyo, you did have a string of bad luck as well, and a whole host of injuries. It wasn't just 1 or 2 knocks; it was career-ending injuries, wasn't it?
The individuals in 2018 was my best year, and I think I finished the season number 2 and number 3 in the world, and had an amazing season. And I was like, okay, well, do you know what? I'll keep going for Tokyo, and I'll try get my medal that way. I had a string of injuries, from like Achilles injuries to then the autoimmune, and eventually ultimately the hip injury that finished my career. But yeah, unfortunately, I feel like I became a better athlete, but my body wasn't able to withstand my progression. Actually,
the last time I spoke to you as an athlete was quite a significant moment for you. I didn't realise at the time how significant a moment that was. It was Shekeshverova World Cup final in 2021, when you just got out of the pool. You'd swum a slow, and I remember thinking, oh, slow for us, because you were always a quick swimmer. And I think that was a moment for you when you realised it's done.
I couldn't even walk from the fencing to the hotel room, and we spent 2 days trying to get me ready for it, but it was very bad. Like, the pain was really bad, and I remember thinking, well, look, I'm going to just try and see what happens, and if I can't, I can't. At least I have closure that I gave everything I could. I remember diving into the pool, I wasn't even able to use my legs. So then when I got out of the pool, I realised, I was like, that's it. And I remember taking a moment to look around, to see the stadium, and it was like a very emotional moment for me, just to be like, this is the end, you know what I mean? So I remember seeing you, and I was like, not now, James. Let me have my moment. This is my career, yeah. So that was a tough moment, but yeah.
It was often the case when I saw you at events, it was not now, for one reason or another. You're very charismatic guy, but very professional when it came to performing, and that was reflected throughout your career. Obviously then, you still qualified for Tokyo, and end up obviously making the decision. You did want to make numbers up, an admirable decision, because that then gave the place to somebody else. And I know you were sort of sat at home watching Joe Chung win gold with a tear in your eye, knowing that could have been you. But I think that was a transitional point, wasn't it, where probably you realised you were ready for your next step.
Yeah, like I will say that the best athletes won the medals in the end of the day, and even if I was fit and healthy, I don't think I would have been able to compete with Joe on that day. He was supreme. But yeah, even just watching someone else relive your dream at the time and not having the chance to be there was a surprisingly overwhelming moment for me. I didn't think it was going to hit me that way, but it did. And yeah, I think pretty soon after that, I always had this love for film, and I knew that I needed something to throw my attention into, and pretty much went into it as soon as that was over. But yeah, it was definitely a good closing point watching that for me.
You've always chased what you've wanted pretty hard, right? And it seems like you've adapted that passion for sports. You're now going full speed ahead with filmmaking. Is filmmaking something you've always been interested in?
Yeah, so I had a sponsorship in 2015 from Nissan, and part of the sponsorship deal was I had to make videos every month, and it kind of forced me to start doing it. And then I realized, hey, this is kind of something I like to do, and it was something I very much just did as a hobby, just to, you know, to make the training camps a little bit more fun. Nothing major, but as soon as I got injured and everything, I kind of reassessed my life. What do I want to do? And I applied for a master's in London Film Academy in the UK, and I got it.
But you're not only studying your masters, you're very much an active filmmaker at the moment. We've been upstairs, we're here in your house in Battersea in London, and we've seen your kit collection. When I've been aware of the projects you've been working on, working with some big brands.
Yeah.
It's started off pretty well for you, I must say. As someone who's worked in film, I can, you know, acknowledge someone who's obviously launched themselves into the industry well, and I think you probably say yourself, you're off to a very good start in this industry.
Yeah, I think the move to London was a good call, and I think my connections in sport have managed to get me into the kind of sporting niche a little bit. I've worked with clients such as L'Oreal, BG Sport. I filmed for Tyson Fury for like his upcoming fight and a few things like that. So it's starting to get quite exciting. I'm starting to go more into the sort of the niche of sport. I've done some stuff for WWE as well, and like, so it's quite fun to see kind of the sporting world from the other side.
I know you've got a big project you're working on at the moment, which you can't talk about at the moment. That could be quite exciting. So you watch this space basically, right? Yeah,
I think so. I think it'll, like a lot of people in Pentathlon, may be excited about it. I'm not really sure, but it hopefully people will all see it.
Keep an eye on your socials maybe. What would be your advice to athletes, you know, of all age ranges, really, those entering the sports now and those you know, who are coming to maybe the end of their career? What would be your advice to them regarding planning for the future and planning either change away from the sport or a career after being an athlete?
Like, first of all, like the first thing would be like, don't panic. Life doesn't end when pentathlon ends. If a competition doesn't go well, the world, you know, is not going to end. You will be fine. I wish I had that context when I was an athlete, because sometimes I wore everything on my shoulders. So just remember, this is sport. Life will go on afterwards, even if you get injured or you retire early or something. Two, use all the time in the training camps and the downtime in between training, because that does exist. It is there, to even just start like kind of thinking about what you'd like to do, kind of maybe going down some hobby avenues and dipping your hand in a few different things and starting to think about what life would be like on the other side. And three, I would say plan, if you know when you're going to retire, plan something for the year after you retire. If you think you're going to train for the Olympics and you know you're finished after the Olympics, make sure you have a plan for the year after, because when you stop, everything changes, your identity changes, your world changes, and it's really important to have something to do. Otherwise you can end up a bit lost and a bit confused and maybe even bitter in some stages. So advice, make sure you fill that year when you finish retire with something. But yeah, and life is good on the other side. Like, I want to say that as well. Like, it's good. It's different, but it's good.
Final lap. Arthur Lanigan, O'Keefe of Ireland, still on track for gold in second place. It is still Jung Woo Tai of